multi-vehicle crash, causing long queues back onto the M23 spur towards the airport as well. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight on the show, we've got the IEA Communications Manager, that's Reem Ibrahim. We've also got former Labour MP Stephen Pound, he's back on the show for about the 10th time. We're going back in the day with housing specialist Charlie Lamdin. We've got former Apprentice star Ryan Mark Parsons. But first, let's go to the news.
Very good evening. It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. Our top story this evening, Storm Dara has sparked a rare red warning for wind, with gusts of up to 90 miles an hour expected to batter parts of Wales and the southwest of England, including Cardiff, Bristol and Devon. The warning, in place from 3 a.m. tomorrow, calls for people to take care, as flying debris and falling trees could pose a danger to life. An amber warning is also in place for the west coast of the UK, from Scotland to Cornwall, and Northern Ireland, with large waves and potential damage to homes and buildings. Heavy rain and over 100 flood warnings are also in effect, adding to the weekend's challenges. Now, in Scotland, a farm has been placed under lockdown after a cow tested positive for atypical mad cow disease. The Scottish Government has imposed strict movement restrictions on affected animals, although it says there is no risk to public health and the cow didn't enter the food chain. The case in Dumfries and Galloway was detected through routine surveillance, and investigations are now underway to determine its origin. Authorities have assured the public that stringent control measures are in place to prevent any wider impact. And the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, has signed a controversial trade deal with South American countries, which could have a significant impact on farmers in the UK. The deal has been met with firm opposition from several EU member states, and is expected to face a backlash from the farming sector across Europe, with a significant impact in Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. European farmers have consistently protested against the EU-Mercosur deal, arguing it could lead to cheap imports of South American foods, especially beef, which they claim does not meet the EU's environmental and food safety standards. And the Princess of Wales has made a rare public appearance with her family at Westminster Abbey for her annual Christmas Carol service this evening. The royal couple walked into the historic Abbey where they married in 2011 with their children, who stopped at the kindness tree to hang messages on its branches in dedication to someone who has supported them during their lives. This year's Together at Christmas event celebrates love and empathy, with 1,600 guests invited. In a message sent ahead of the service, Kate said Christmas is a moment of celebration and joy, as well as an opportunity to slow down and reflect on things that connect us all. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Hill. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield, and joining him tonight we've got Reem Ibrahim, who is the Communications Manager of the IEA, and he's back. He's been released from the care home, the trusty old left in the corner.
I'm still tagged.
It's Stephen Pound, he's got a tag on. Listen, we're going to talk about immigration numbers. They were out last week. Absolutely astonishing figures, unbelievable figures. The Tories were bad on immigration. Labour before them was bad on immigration. Nobody out there on the street in the real world actually believes any party now when they say they're going to control immigration. What is it, Stephen, about our political parties, the establishment, Parliament, when it comes to immigration? You just don't get it.
Well, Lee, you said it's unbelievable. For me, it's all too believable.
Yeah.
The reality is we're talking about 20,000 people now since July of this year. Now, OK, you can say that the weather's been very good and everything.
Yeah, but that's illegal migration, Stephen.
Exactly so. Look, you look back to America, we're now talking about mass deportations in America. When Eisenhower deported over 1 million people in the 50s, do you know what he did? He actually shaved their heads so they wouldn't come back in again. Now, that's sort of real hardcore, a thing called Operation Wetback, mate. I just don't think this country is ready for that. People say, we don't like it, but when you say, what would you do about it? I think what we have to do, Lee, is to process those people who come here. We're not going to send people back to Afghanistan and Iran, and let's get them paying taxes. But in all honesty, mate, single men from Albania, they should be back on the boat and actually turned around as they're going through a flipping revolving door.
I think we're having different conversations here. We started on legal migration,
Yes.
which is like a million net million people coming into the country.
Yes.
Unbelievable figures.
Yeah, so last week we saw the immigration statistics come out, and we found out that under the Tories, over the last year, we've seen net migration hit almost 1 million. Almost 1 million. This country cannot handle those numbers. Now, I'm somebody that's from a North African background. I think that immigration is generally quite good for the country. It's good for the economy when it's the right kinds of people and when it's people that are actually incentivised to work. Unfortunately, the current system incentivises people to get lost in the benefit system, get lost into effectively being reliant on taxpayer money, and it's so unfair. How is it that we have hard-working, often British taxpayers footing the bill for benefits from many, many people that have just arrived on boats? And it's absolutely unacceptable.
She's right, though, Stephen, isn't she? The benefit bill for people not born in this country is absolutely astronomical. And that's not fair on the British taxpayer.
No, look, I think, Lee, you're absolutely right to differentiate between the people on the boats and the so-called legal migration. When I was an MP, and you probably had the same thing, I remember somebody would come over here as a care worker, and next thing you know, they'd apply for family reunion, and you have 17 or 18 members of the family.
Yeah.
Now, fair play, the Conservatives actually have stopped that, or they certainly dialed down on that, and I hope that we can do the same thing now with the new government. But the reality is that a lot of immigrants to this country give a huge amount. They're entrepreneurial, they're very active, they're very hardworking, and they're pretty desperate in many cases. But the fact is, at the moment, the balance is wrong.
I think it's true that many, many migrants that come to this country do contribute and do work hard. But when you actually look into those statistics a little bit more, rather than just looking at the oversight, what you actually find out is that it's migrants from particular countries that contribute more than others. So we know, for example, that migrants from a North African and Middle Eastern background, where I'm from, tend to actually not contribute more in tax revenue than they actually take out in the system. We've got to be very clear about this. We need to solve the housing crisis. We need to be building more homes. We've got about 4 million missing homes, and that was a failure of both the Conservatives and clearly now the Labour government as well. But at the same time, we need to ensure that public services are able to actually catch up. Until we do all of those things, we cannot be taking on this many people.
Let's go back to my original point, Stephen. What is it about governments in this country, whether it's Labour or Conservative, that they just do not get how the public feel on mass migration? Why don't they understand?
Lee, let's be honest. The last election in July elected 5 Reform UK members of Parliament. Now, we can argue whether what the basis for that election was, but I should say one of the main factors is a feeling that the government is not listening to the people. And of that, the third rail, the one that you touch at your peril, is immigration. So I think whether if there's a sort of intrinsic fear of just talking about it in the civil service or not, the reality is that you guys are coming down the track like a railway train, and people have got to start listening. Now, that's the easy bit. The hard bit is what we do about it, how we actually deal with it, because we can't put the Royal Navy across the channel. We've got to start processing and dealing with these people, and we've got to get the Home Office, which is utterly unfit for purpose. It's a sporadic organisation. We've got to get that. Lee, you probably found the same thing.
Stephen, I'm sorry, but it's excellent for you to be talking about this, but the fact that the majority of people on the left absolutely do not care about this, and the fact that over the last few years, now they are starting to talk about it. I'm not being funny, but so many people on the right have been talking about this for years, and it's people like Stephen, not you necessarily, but people on the left.
I'll go with him.
I'll go with Stephen, that have been saying that if you are restrictive on immigration, if you think that immigration is a problem in this country, you are a racist. You are not allowed to talk about it.
Let me be blunt here, Stephen.
I would never say that in 100 years.
When I was in the Labour Party, I used to hear all these Labour MPs and councillors and Labour Party members saying, oh, isn't migration such a great thing? It enriches our culture, which it may be, but the economic benefits are fantastic. And they're not like you just said, Stephen. You can have a care worker come from Central Africa. I mean, 5 or 6 kids with them.
Lee, I've never heard anybody say in the generality immigration is a good thing. What I've heard a lot of people, I'm from West London, and we had the huge Irish community in West London. Now we've got the big Sikh community, we've got Syrians, we've got Iraqis, we've got Tamils. And what people say on an individual basis, they're fine. But the problem is, and as Reem said, it's the sheer numbers. And I think that is the issue nowadays. We're a pretty small island. We've got a population of over 60 million. How much longer can we go on?
And yet Keir Starmer, Reem, refuses to talk about this issue.
This is the point, Raheem. He had a speech this week and immigration wasn't mentioned. The point is that we talk about immigration as though it is this kind of silver bullet. If we were to restrict it, then everything will be fine. That's not the case at all. The government itself has failed on immigration, but the real problem is that we haven't been able to build services that are able to catch up to it. Even if we stop immigration, cut it to zero migration tomorrow, we will still need so much more. And ultimately, we've got the highest tax burden since the Second World War. We're taxing young people so significantly in order to foot the bill for millions of people that come over this country today. It is unfair. And ultimately, I see many of these younger people that want to actually leave the country altogether because they say, this country does not care about me.
Did you see that 2 weeks ago, 600 people were deported, illegal overstayers, deported to Brazil? We've also had an operation in Germany where we found the people from China who are providing these dinghies and these rigid inflatable boats. There are some things happening.
This is a contract by the Labour Party. The 9,400 people they deported since they came into power in July are not people that came over on small boats. These are overstayers that's been here 10, 20 years. They're sort of dressing this up in the House of Commons, like Sir Keir did yesterday, as if we're deporting these people that's come over on boats, and they're not, Stephen.
The point is that people that come over on boats are actually a very, very, very small percentage of migration. So we saw figures from last week.
They cost a lot of money.
They cost a huge amount of money. They're very small. The majority of illegal immigration is actually coming from people that are overstaying their visas, or they come legally. So they come on a plane, for example, on a tourist visa, and they overstay and then claim asylum when they get here. Clearly, there is an incentive for people to want to come here and claim asylum. Why do they leave France? Why do they leave a safe country?
Good question.
Because here, we give them freebies that are fit when British taxpayers that fit the bill.
Let's put that question to our left in the corner. Stephen, why are they leaving France, a so-called safe country, to come to this country?
Because don't forget, benefits in France are actually a lot higher than they are in this country. They're coming here mostly because of language and because of family connections. But look, the reality
benefits
is...
are unequivocally a part of it. We have one of the most generous benefit systems
we
in
do
all
not.
of Europe.
German benefits are much higher, French benefits are much higher, Italian benefits are much higher.
There? That's the point. In Germany, they are much more restrictive about who actually gets those benefits.
Oh, they are now.
In this country, we give it out willy-nilly to whoever comes here and wants it.
Angela Merkel said, come one, come all.
She might have said that, but if you talk about the actual statistics about what people get, we spend huge amounts of money on the welfare state, huge amounts of money on benefits.
Nearly as much as they do in Germany and France.
Per person, per capita, or those particular people.
But Stephen, we see Sir Keir Starmer bleating on about the 9,400 deported since July. We've seen the immigration minister say the same thing in the House on many occasions. Yet these are the people who signed a letter 2-3 years ago, in December, I think it was 2020 or 2021, to stop murderous, rapists, child sex offenders being deported to their country of origin.
No,
why is that, Stephen?
Lee, that's actually not the case.
Is it just the case, Stephen?
What they said was, in those particular cases, that the British law should apply.
But can you see the hypocrisy there, Reem, with the Labour Party?
It's incredibly hypocritical. I think that the most important point to make here, though, is that ultimately, when people on the left are talking about immigration, they're often saying it very, very recently. They're saying, well, now the numbers are unsustainable, but they've allowed it to get to 1 million. Ultimately, it's been a Conservative government that's presided over this huge amount of people that have come over, and it's our fault for not allowing people to follow the law. Now, I'm actually quite liberal in immigration. I think immigration overall is really, really good for the economy. It's really good for this country, and I wouldn't be here without it. That being said, people must come here to work and they must come here to contribute. When my grandparents came to the UK in the 60s, they came here to work. They wouldn't have taken benefits. They wouldn't have taken or expected British taxpayers to foot the bill for their lifestyles. They came here and they were honoured to contribute to this country. That is not the case today.
But don't forget, the people who are most in favour of immigration are the big business people who actually want to bring cheap labour in here. They're desperate for it. If you actually look at the real fans, and not some mythical beast on the left of the party or the left of this country, it's actually big businesses who actually want cheap labour. They want to bring it in. Exactly it's the same situation you have in America.
So you're wrong about this very specifically. On the left, there seems to be a cry out for cheaper, low-skilled migration. People like Lord Wolfson,
where's your evidence for that?
Let me finish the sentence.
Come on.
Let me finish my point. People like Lord Wolfson, the CEO of Next. Let me finish my point. People like Lord Wolfson, the CEO of Next, have said, I want more immigration because clearly British people are not going to be filling in those jobs. We're talking about the hospitality sector, we're talking about retail. People are not filling in those jobs. Why is that? It's because we've got 1/10 of people on long-term sickness benefits. So our welfare system, I think, is the biggest problem. Again, taxpayers are footing the bill for this. And ultimately what's happening is a lot of young people, many of them are former students, end up claiming long-term sickness benefits because they say they've got mental health problems. Where is the evidence that if you've got depression or anxiety, you should be on benefits?
I think they're better off at work, aren't the people?
Absolutely. Everyone knows that. When you have work, it gives you dignity.
But that's a different issue. You cancel that tomorrow. You're not going to suddenly create a whole load of dentists to replace the Iranian dentist. I'm sorry. It's a different issue.
The point is the welfare.
On that note, we're going to knock in there because Stephen's off on one. The ambulance is outside waiting for him. Coming up next, we're going back in the day with Charlie Landing.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Bansky's Girl with Balloon is arguably one of the artist's most recognisable images. So when a limited edition print signed by the artist was stolen from Grove Gallery in London, an investigation was launched by the Metropolitan Police's Flying Squad. The work was thankfully retrieved. The desire to own great works of art has once again become evident this week, albeit a little further afield on the continent. Police in Italy have uncovered a criminal network forging artworks by Bansky, Andy Warhol, Pablo Picasso and others. Investigators said that they've seized more than 2,100 fake pieces of art with a potential market value of about £165 million. With me to discuss that case is the Chief Executive of Grove Gallery, James Ryan.
The art world needs to tighten up. It is known as a bit of a Wild West out there because people will try and chance it with these forgeries. You're quite right, there's only one actual original, but even auction houses have been hoodwinked before.
The burglary that you suffered is sub judice, so we have to be careful what we say about it. But it must have been a bit of a shock to you. I mean, was it a broken window, a smashed door?
At 10, 11 o'clock at night, and just hammer straight through, shoulder barging through the door, and then in and out. You know, gone in 60 seconds. I must say, I know.
Obviously, they had a targeted attack. The person would have known what he or she was after. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I must say, I know they cop a lot of flack, the police force, but the flying squad got the artwork back within 3 days. They were fantastic. So yeah, I've never heard or seen, other than the Thomas Crown affair type film, you know, I just didn't think it'd be happening to little old me, you know, in Fitzrovia, but it did, and thankfully we got it back.
GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time for Back in the Day with housing specialist Charlie Lambdin, and also you're a pilot as well, but we'll get onto that later. Now it's back in the day, Charlie, so back in the day in a place like Ashfield, where I'm from, in the 80s and 90s, you could go to the local council and say, I want a council house. They would give you 3 sets of keys, and they'd say, go away, go and pick the one you want, and you can move in a couple of weeks. Nowadays, you go to the local council, there's 7,000 people on the waiting list. You literally no chance of getting a council house. Why is that, and what can we do about it?
There are 2 reasons for that. Number one was when Thatcher brought in Right to Buy, on its own, not a problem. The problem was not replacing that housing stock when it was sold off. That was a very big, it was a gradual problem. No one noticed it to begin with, but over the decades, that's led to a massive problem. The second problem is that the government has not been able to build, or hasn't built, sufficient social housing to meet its own housing obligations from whatever source of those housing obligations are met. So the government is now having to spend huge amounts of money in the private sector, paying for temporary accommodation and private rented, and that's bad value for the taxpayer. It's causing councils to go bankrupt, and it's causing people to be unable to get on with their lives. So the social ripple effect of not having enough social housing affects all of us.
So see, Angela Rayner's, she's made this pledge. I think she's going to build 1.5 million council houses, social housing, if you like, over the next 4 to 5 years. Is that feasible? Is that possible?
Not based on what I can see, no, it's not possible at all. I don't think she said she's going to build 1.5 million social homes. It's just 1.5 million homes. Okay. The amount they've pledged towards social homes is actually a fraction of that, and that's the problem. They should be building social homes first, so that the taxpayer is not paying temporary accommodation, and people in temporary accommodation can be moved into permanent accommodation and get on with their lives.
So what is it? Why don't we build more houses?
There are a long list of reasons for that. It's not so much the total number for the country. There are places in the country where there are enough houses, it's just not where people want to live. So, and then where you want to build houses, the people who live there don't want houses built. So you've got a NIMBY problem in some places. You've also got changing habits of workforce, so it's becoming harder. For just looking objectively at it, it's becoming harder to work out where. And there are actually blocks of flats in London that have been built and they're still sitting empty because no one can afford them.
So how many houses do you think in the UK are actually empty at the moment?
Well, government's own figures say that there are, I think, from memory, 750,000 long-term empty homes. So that's not including second homes, not including Airbnbs. That's just empty homes. So that's half the government's housing target right there.
That's incredible, isn't it, really? I mean, there's part of the solution. Now, I spoke earlier, Charlie, about my inbox. I get people emailing in, complaining that they can't get a council house, they can't find a house to rent that's cheap enough. But then I get an equal amount of emails from people saying they're building a new development next door to me for 200, 300 houses, and they're complaining as well. So that's a pretty hard, it's hard to go back at both sets of people and with a reasoned argument, because we need more houses. And I always say to people, do you want your children to be able to live in the village or town where they was born? And they all say yes. Well, the answer is to build more houses.
That's exactly right. You know, if you're going to stay in the house that you bought to bring your family up and you're not going to move out, where are your kids going to live?
Yeah.
They need new houses. So I think NIMBYism is a problem.
Yeah.
And actually, as a pilot, I fly around the country a lot and see that there are vast swathes of perfectly usable land. The trouble is, it's not where people want it.
Yeah.
That's the real problem. So there are empty homes, but they're not where people want them.
Another big problem we have, and we have a little bit of this in Ashfield. We see, I might go and see an old lady who's maybe in her 80s and 90s. She's in a big old 5-bedroomed house, rattling around. She's probably been there 60 years, 70 years. Bought a family up there. Husband's no longer with there. I'm thinking, you know what? A family should be in the house. There should be an incentive to take this old lady out, put her in maybe a bungalow or whatever, so it's easier for her, and free that property up. You get 5 people in there.
Scrap stamp duty and you solve that problem.
Straight away. Why don't we do that?
I don't know why we don't. The single fastest solution to the housing crisis would be to completely scrap stamp duty. And if the government's worried about, well, hang on a second, how do we pay for that? The immediate, Zoopla's estimates are that 2 to 3 times more people would buy and move. So you would inject social mobility back in. You would be creating jobs on the back of that and social mobility that would, I think, more than offset the loss of stamp duty. Yes, council tax needs to be reformed. That's a separate thing. But stamp duty is a tax on social mobility, and it's what's stopping people from downsizing from the big empty homes, because the stamp duty bill they've got to pay on the house they're downsizing to is just too much. It's really off-putting. So stamp duty is a regressive and badly thought-through tax.
So, housing specialist, Charlie, also a pilot. How long have you had your licence?
14 years.
14 years. And why did you take to that?
To start with, it was just for fun. It got harder and harder. It's really quite scary. A lot of pilots that get their licence don't renew it after the first couple of years.
Why?
Because you're just left on your own. It teaches you accountability in a way that you've never understood it. Once you've taken off on your own, you are alone. You cannot pull over and stop, and no one can help you. So whatever happens, either you land successfully or you're dead. Right?
Wow.
So it teaches.
You're not selling it.
Decision. No, well, this is. It's a real. It's such a challenge. It's cathartic. It makes you feel alive. But actually, the skills that you learn in flying and decision making are great in all.
So you must have had some scary moments.
Yeah.
What's the scariest?
Actually, I had my first and hopefully my only emergency at the beginning of this year. I had to do an emergency landing at a military airbase because I got myself into 100% my own fault. I should have landed sooner because the weather was getting worse. I pressed on into bad weather.
Yeah.
And ended up having to declare an emergency and land at a naval base.
Did you get in trouble for that?
Not from the Navy. They were amazing. They said, we'd much rather you were landed safe than a smoking hole in the hillside somewhere. So they were fantastic. But on social, I have a YouTube channel for my flying, and on social media, I got punished severely there.
And rightly so, I think, wasting all that money and time and effort and worry for people. How does your family feel about this?
They love it. We get to do things as a family, because I'm a pilot. It's just amazing family trips. And I got to meet amazing people. The pilot community is full of incredible people, lots of ex-military, ex-airline, and people who just love to fly for just amazing little contraptions with one seat, with no, it's a magical thing to do. Being up there is a very unnatural thing, and you're up there and you're, what am I doing up here? It's
my mate's got one of these simulators in his bedroom. He's built it. It's absolutely brilliant. I've had a go at it, and it's I quite like it, but I don't think I'd be getting into a little single-engine aeroplane and flying around the skies. Like you say, what happens if the engine cuts out?
Oh, that's right. They glide. They all glide.
Really?
Even the big airlines.
No, but how long?
If you're at 5,000 feet, you've got about 8 or 10 minutes to glide.
As long as that?
Yeah. So you've got plenty of time to fix somewhere.
Yeah.
And basically, once you get into that situation, you just treat the airplane as an airbag. You don't worry about the plane. You just make sure you get down safely.
What about night flying? Do you do that?
I have done. It's very little, but that's because actually in this country there are very few small airfields open at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, the CAA doesn't. Everywhere else in Europe and America, you've got pilot-controlled lighting. You can switch on runway lights from the plane. You can't do that.
And what's the best place you've flown to? The furthest?
Norway.
Norway? Over the North Sea?
No, I actually I went all the way around. I went Germany, Belgium, Germany.
So you went over land?
Yes, and then Sweden and Norway. Over a bit of sea as well, because and fly seaplanes up there.
You must have seen that film back in the day, the James Stewart old film, the Charles Lindbergh film.
Yes.
Where he flies over the Atlantic. It was about, was it 20 odd hours or 30 hours?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Incredible.
Absolutely. And he paved the way for people like you.
Yeah, he did.
Charlie, fascinating discussion. Brilliant. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Coming up next, we've got right versus left.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara is expected to bring heavy outbreaks of rain and some severe gales at times as we head into the weekend. Hail snow too for Scotland, and there are multiple Met Office warnings in force, so do stay up to date on our website for those. This is Storm Dara here out to the west, bringing in heavy outbreaks of rain alongside these frontal systems and a good squeeze in the Isobars, so very strong winds at times across the bulk of the country, particularly around western coasts. These outbreaks of rain are set to continue overnight, still falling as snow across high ground in Scotland, and we're really going to see those winds strengthen in western areas overnight too, particularly in western parts of Wales where we do have a red Met Office wind warning in force too. We could see gusts here reaching around 80 to 90 miles per hour. So for the start of Saturday then, it's going to be a very wet start across a lot of the country. Scotland seeing outbreaks of rain, still some hill snow across higher ground as well. And similar across northern parts of England, Northern Ireland, heavy outbreaks of rain and very strong winds, particularly around coastal areas, but even inland areas seeing some very strong gusts at times. Western parts of Wales likely to see severe gales here at times, making very difficult driving conditions. And on the whole through Saturday, there is likely to be disruption as a result of the storm. The heavy outbreaks of rain continuing. Still a very windy day across a large portion of the country, particularly around western coasts. And looking at the temperatures too later on, we can see highs generally between 9 to 10 Celsius, but in those very, very strong winds as well. That's really going to add on to the wind chill, so it is going to feel a very chilly day, particularly under the rain and in those strong winds. Through into Sunday, we do start to see the weather settle down slightly. We do have some outbreaks of rain still, particularly in eastern areas, a few showers feeding into eastern parts of Scotland. The best of the weather, or the driest and brightest of the weather across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. But it's still going to be a very blustery day on offer, and we won't really see more settled conditions until we head into next week. Bye for now.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're back, it's right versus left. We've got Reem and we've got Stephen. So what we're going to talk about this week is political donations to the main parties, and the rumour that's circulating around Parliament is that Elon Musk might donate $100 million to the Reform UK party. I'd be delighted with that, actually. But Stephen, is it OK for people from other countries to try and to donate and possibly influence our elections?
I'm not happy with the idea. And I think, to a certain extent, Elon Musk can do what he wants with his money. And he wants to give it through X, or whatever his company's called.
Well, in order for him to do it, he'd have to do it with a British incorporated company.
Yeah, because he's a South African citizen. Yeah, so take your point. But look, there's a real issue here about donations to political parties. And I remember, when we won in '97, the first problem we had was Bernie Ecclestone giving a huge amount of money. There's always, because nobody gives money without a hook in the middle of it. That's the difficulty. And the old thing about who pays the piper calls the tube. It's a real problem with that. But if you look at what's happening in Romania today with Georgescu, who's a very pro-Putin populist in there, and there's a huge amount of Russian interference in that. And
The difference is,
I'm
Stephen,
unhappy about it.
Elon Musk is a private individual, and what he does with his money is entirely of his own volition. And ultimately,
I still don't like it, though.
Well, that's fine. You cannot like it, but you probably don't like it because you don't want Reform to be as successful as be more successful than the Labour Party. Unfortunately,
how dare you?
Well, that's ultimately the point.
They're behind us in about 200 seats.
Yeah, but Stephen, you've just said if you give money to a political party, there's a hook in there somewhere.
Of course there
So
is.
what about the trade unions giving money to the Labour Party?
Less and less every year.
Well, what about Lord Ali that got a number 10 pass as a result of his donation to the Labour Party?
I'm sorry, Lord Ali is a member of Parliament. I mean, he's got every right to have a pass to come into Downing
No, he
Street.
doesn't. Why does every single
I
other
never
Labour
got one.
Lord?
Well, I
does
did.
Does every other Labour Lord have a number 10 pass? Stephen,
Well,
that's
no, hang on a second.
outrageous.
He had
No,
a
that's outrageous.
Sorry, he had
The
a
reason
10
why.
He had a 10-day pass.
The reason why he got a number 10 pass close to Keir Starmer is because he was a donor. So don't give me that. Don't tell me that it was absolutely fine as a member of Parliament. I don't see any other Labour Lords with number 10 passes.
Stephen, will you be quiet and let Reem get a word in?
I beg your pardon.
It's all right. I'll give you a slap.
Come on. Can you see that? Security, please come. No, go on, Steve.
No,
the trade unions, they've got a hook into the Labour Party with big donations, haven't they?
Hang on a second, Lee. The trade unions formed the Labour Party.
But that's not an argument, Steve.
Hang on a second. So you and I have both been trade unionists in our working life. And what we want in the trade unions is actually the same principle that the Labour Party was. That's that solidarity and community. And so I don't see any problem with it. If the
Where is the solidarity and community when train drivers on upwards of £67,000 a year are still striking? And the reason for that is because they see a Labour government.
What train drivers are striking?
Train drivers. They cancelled their strike at the beginning of November
so you're wrong.
because they got another pay deal, a second pay deal from a Labour government. So the point still remains: unions fund the Labour Party, and they're able to have a foothold under the Labour government. They attempted to do the same thing with the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party were incredibly weak in government, and it meant that what happened is that they entirely gave in. The Labour Party are much more likely to give in. The point is, any private individual or private organisation has the complete right to do whatever they want with their own money. And if Elon Musk wishes to donate to Reform, he has every right to do so.
A number of individuals, I'm thinking of Bamfords, the JCB people, who give a huge amount of money to the Conservative Party. They give much more collectively than they do the trade union. Don't forget, not every trade union funds the Labour Party. I wish they did.
So why do you have a problem
the biggest
with Elon
unions,
Musk,
like the teachers, they don't actually fund the Labour Party.
So why do you have a problem with Elon Musk?
Because the trade unions...
It's because you don't like him. It's okay when they do it, but not okay when they do it.
Trade unions are part of the warp and weft of this nation. They're ordinary working men and women. Elon Musk...
Why do you get to decide? Why do you get to decide who is okay and who
I don't
isn't?
decide that Elon Musk is a South African entrepreneur who's a profoundly weird individual. He is. That's the fact. Trade unions...
It's not a fact, it's your opinion. I think he's brilliant. He's done more for the world than any government when it comes to environmental policy. Net zero, all of this stuff is absolute. He's
a complete climate denier.
He's expanded EVs, electric vehicles, more than anybody has ever done. And it is proof, by the way, that you don't need government net zero policies to solve climate change. What you need is private individuals, entrepreneurs that result in technological advancements like Elon Musk.
Electric vehicles will only succeed if you have tax advantages and tax disadvantages. Nobody will want to buy an electric vehicle unless there's
why there's 60 million electric vehicles on the roads there.
And less are being sold percentage-wise every day.
Electric vehicles are much cheaper now than they ever have been, and the reason for that is because they are cheaper now than they ever have been, and the reason for that is because entrepreneurs are able to do so. Elon Musk has done that.
There's a reason, Stephen, we don't drive around on the roads on horse and carts. You might remember those days, I certainly don't, but there is a reason for that, because of entrepreneurs.
It's because of capitalism, it's because of the free market, it's because entrepreneurs like Elon Musk have contributed to this world, and I think he has every right to support parties that uphold those ideologies, that uphold the system, that allow people to be successful.
I mean, the reason why we drive around in cars, not in horses and carts, is because the state supported Gottlieb Daimler and various other people in Germany.
That's just not true.
I'm sorry. If you actually have a look at the origin of the motor car came because of state support for universities in Germany.
So actually, yes, you are right. Historically, that's true. But it's unequivocally untrue to say that the reason why we have such economic success today is because of the state. It's not true. It's because businesses have been able to provide things that other people want.
And where did they get their education?
Where do they get their education?
Yeah.
Depends on the country and depends on the state. Ultimately, I think that you can't sit here and say that the British state education system is one of success. I went through the state education system in the UK. It was not great. Well, most people.
You did all right.
Thank you. I did okay. Well, that's a result of working hard.
Time for the yes or no quiz. Reem, you must have watched this programme.
I have. I love this programme.
OK, best programme on GB?
Best programme in the world.
In the world. OK. It's time for the yes-no quiz. And it's got to be yes or a no. You know this, Reem. You know this, Stephen. You've actually won a few of these, haven't you?
Yes.
Let's see. He's not going to fall for it. Right. Question number 1. Remember, yes or no. No verbal ticking allowed. No grunting. No moaning. That's difficult.
No nuance.
Yeah. Should we cap immigration?
No.
Stephen?
Yes.
Ooh. Stephen, can Parliament be trusted with immigration?
Yes.
No.
Conflict. Reem, over in the US, will Donald Trump stop illegal migration?
Yes.
Stephen?
No.
Stephen, will Starmer smash the gangs?
Yes.
No.
Stephen, should Elon Musk be allowed to donate to Reform UK?
Yes.
Yes.
5-5. Wonders he never sees. Stephen, you did quite well in that. Would you like a tiebreaker?
Got no choice, mate.
Wrong answer.
Oh, you're crafty.
Reem, would you like a tiebreaker?
Yes.
We don't need one now, do we?
I won, you lose.
You crafty person.
Do you want to come back on one, Reem? Can Parliament be trusted with immigration?
So it's interesting that your initial question before was, do we need a cap on immigration? I don't think that's true. I think we need businesses to provide the jobs, and it's provided that there are those jobs, those migrants should be able to come and fill them, should they wish to. When it comes to Parliament being trusted on immigration, I don't think it should be the government's decision about whether or not those migration figures are correct, which is why I don't believe in net zero migration tomorrow. I don't think that's the government's right to implement it. I think if there are the jobs here, people should be allowed to come. They shouldn't be allowed to take taxpayer money and effectively take out from the benefit system. So I don't believe in that.
But Reem, if the government isn't going to set this, who is?
Who is?
Yeah.
As I just said, businesses. If you come,
so individual businesses have individual laws for individual numbers of people.
No, it's not the laws, Stephen. Don't be silly. It's if there are.
Don't be silly. Now you've started that.
If there are the jobs there, people should be allowed to come and fill them. So I don't know what the number is, but what will happen is that if there are the jobs there, and businesses like Lord Wolfson's Next, they have the jobs there, and people want to come and fill those jobs, they should have the right to do so. So it's not the government.
I can understand Lord Wolfson. You're on about Lord Wolfson, who's done some great work, by the way.
Yes.
And you can understand his frustrations with the system, that he's actually saying this. I would imagine that he would love to have British workers working
the way the system works at the moment.
But too many people are on benefits and not working.
You can issue a work permit, but first of all, you have to actually advertise the job locally to see if nobody
under current law, but I'd scrap that law.
So what you'd say is, if somebody says, "I want 5 dentists," I can actually just import 5 dentists.
Absolutely, it shouldn't be up to the government to decide. It should be up to private businesses to decide. So that's my point. I don't believe the government.
That would be bad for the nation, wouldn't it? Because it would drive down the. I'm sorry, it would.
No, it wouldn't. The reason why
Stephen,
the reason why people in this country, this is the lump of labour fallacy. The idea that if we are to import migration, this is an economic concept. The idea that if we are to import loads of people, that suddenly means that wages are suppressed. That's not true. The problem at the moment is that we have huge amounts of people on benefits. 1/10 of the adult working population are on long-term sickness benefits. That is a scandal. That is a disgrace. When huge amounts of people are on benefits in this country, and then at the same time we're importing 1 million people net migration a year. Clearly, there's a disconnect here. I don't think it's up to the government to decide. They should remove those benefits so British people can actually work and fill those jobs.
Right, guys, that's it.
So you're saying the government should be decided.
Stephen, please reduce your aggressive attitude. I won't have second thoughts about it.
She's beating me up here.
You're doing it again. Reem apologise for his behaviour.
Okay,
coming up next, we've got Last Orders with Ryan Mark Parsons.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
A Jaguar has ditched its growling big cat logo as part of what can only be described as a woke rebrand. The badge that has been used for decades, look at it, beautiful, on the bonnets of luxury cars has been swapped for a curved geometric J badge. They've also released a brand new advert, look at it, for their rebrand, which prompted Elon Musk to ask if the company actually sold cars. I thought this was a wind-up. It's not. It's true. And joining me now to discuss this is the motoring journalist Amanda Stratton. Amanda, what on earth is going on at Jaguar? The car of James Bond, Batman, Arthur Daley has gone off the scale woke. Please make me make sense of it.
The E-Type is an absolutely iconic car, and it's important that people remember that, in fact, in its heyday, Jaguar was an incredibly prestigious brand, more so really than other British brands like Aston Martin, for example. But, you know, people in the industry are left sort of scratching their heads because you need to do something bold, you need to do something that catches people's attention, but you also need to stay true to who you are and what you are, and I'm not sure that this is it.
Amanda, that could be an advert for anything. It could be cat food. It could be Karl Lagerfeld. It could be literally anything apart from a Jag. Well, I mean, honestly, I mean, OK, we're talking about it. So we are talking about it, but we're not talking about it for the right reasons, are we?
And I think if I was going to be speculative here, I would like to think that this is actually all part of a cunning plan to get everybody talking about it. Yeah. So when they do launch the first new car that we're going to see, which, you know, people have been waiting, as I say, since 2001.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, that's Last Orders at the Bar, and I'm joined with Ryan Mark Parsons, who's a TV personality, a columnist, and he was on The Apprentice a few years back, weren't you? That's where most people would recognise your face from. One of the youngest contenders ever on The Apprentice. How did that work out?
Well, you know what? I never in a million years thought I'd get on the show. I was 18 when I applied. There were about 6 months of auditions. It was intense. You met Lord Sugar's advisors, his lawyers, his business advisors. It was the most intense thing I've ever done. And I just thought, never in a million years am I going to get on the show as a teenager. And I got the call from the exec, and he was like, "You're one of the 16 candidates." And it was just like, really? Total shock.
But why? Why, Ryan? Why?
Well, I applied when I was drunk. It was.
Yeah, that. We're not encouraging irresponsible drinking on this show, but you applied when you was drunk.
Might end up on The Apprentice, and then I just went through the whole process. I took a gap year. I've just finished my A-levels. I was working in Harrods before, and I just came up with this business idea, took it onto the show, and I got fired in the end. I lasted 8 weeks, which wasn't too bad. But
what was the business idea? Educate me.
A concierge, similar to companies like Velocity Black, quintessentially, that work with some of the private banks. It was similar to that. I was inspired by my time in Harrods, working with some of these ultra high net worth clients. So I just wrote a 40-page business plan like we all have to do, but I didn't make it to the interview, so I didn't get to talk about it. But no, it was a great experience, a very tough experience, but unforgettable.
So at a young age, how did that change your life at that age? Because you must have got recognised, starting to be recognised when you're going out and about town.
Yeah, I mean, it happened quite quickly because the adverts start rolling out on BBC One, and then the shows go on air. It's once a week on a Wednesday. You're getting about 7 million people tuning in every week.
Yep.
And yeah, it was surreal. It was surreal. And then suddenly you get invitations to things. You're going to premieres, and it was a lot. It was a lot at a young age, and I obviously had no training for any of that. But I just embraced it, and I've had fun with it.
But at the end of that, at the end of the 8 weeks or whatever it is, you're like off the edge of a cliff edge and it all stops, what do you do then?
I mean, as soon as I got fired, I got my phone back. We didn't have a phone for the whole time filming. No news, no music. So that was a kind of relief to get that humanity back into my life. But you just start getting offers as well. Obviously, sometimes when you do reality shows, if you're a big personality, you stand out, you get other TV offers. And I've done other shows since. And it kind of opened my eyes up to the world of the media. So that's been good.
So you write columns for newspapers as well?
Yeah, so I've worked with the Daily Express, I've worked at Reach. I've done Good Morning Britain about 30 times now, Sky News, Newsnight. Celebsco Dating on Channel 4, I've done that twice.
Yeah.
I've done shows in Wales. I've done shows with YouTubers like Young Philly on BBC Three. And that's all really because of the show. So it has been a blessing. It's given me a lot of money since the show. I've met incredible people, so I'd never in a million years take it back.
So you've packed quite a bit in, right, into your young life so far. But you're still, you're working in politics at the moment. You're working in Westminster.
Yeah.
You're working in my neck of the woods in the same building. You work for a...
Seen you at Strangers.
Yeah, we'll keep that bit quiet. But you work for a Member of Parliament. We're not saying which one because I don't think that's fair. But I mean, how do you find that, working for a Member of Parliament?
I mean, that place...
That's difficult, isn't it, to do?
Yeah, it's quite intense. I mean, I've always wanted to be... I've always liked the idea of becoming a Member of Parliament. Yeah. I've joined the Conservative Party when I was 16. I've always been involved locally in politics, local activism. Being in that place, I just think through osmosis, you learn so much just being there. And then obviously I'm there 5 days a week with my boss. And just seeing what he gets up to, it really, really does open your eyes to the job of an MP and how hard it is. I mean, to just get some free time. I mean, my particular boss, I can't say the same with every MP, but he works relentlessly every single day, if it's in Westminster or the constituency. And it's great to learn. It's a really great place to learn, and I'm loving it.
Well, I do know your boss, by the way. I've spent many a happy hour with your boss, a good man. I actually went away with him a few years back. We went to Israel on the Conservative Friends of Israel trip, where we did the old... we had a few days in Tel Aviv, then went to Jerusalem, we went on to the West Bank.
Oh, wow.
So it was like an educational tour as well. He's a great man. But you say you want to be a Member of Parliament at some stage.
Yeah.
Why? Why would you do that?
Like I was saying, I've always cared a lot about the community I grew up in, which is in South East London. I mean, that would be a blessing to one day represent them if that ever would to become a possibility. I think there's something where I really do care and would love to advocate for people in the community. And I think being an MP, you get that unique privilege to really work with members of the community and do what you can for them.
Right, Ryan, you've been an apprentice. Get a pint pot, mate, one of them, any of them there.
Well, I've never done this before.
Well, stop using that pathetic excuse. Neck oil. You've got to pull a pint in 30 seconds and plonk it on the bar. Go for it.
Right.
You talk about Bob Stewart. Bob used to... Well, keep going, mate.
Right.
Bob had the next door but one office to me. Plonk it on the bar,
I think
please.
this is a disaster.
It is, yeah. Come on, put it on. It's pathetic.
Right, there you
Rubbish.
go. Well, I've never done that before, so...
Well, it doesn't show. It doesn't show. But no, Bob Stewart, a great man.
Very good.
War hero.
Yeah.
Back in the day. He was Colonel Bob.
Yeah.
That's what we call him, Colonel Bob. He's got his bugle in his office. He used to play his bugle sometimes, and see all the old memorabilia, the photos on his wall. A great man. Got into a spot of bother last year. Got a conviction. Then we had a whip round at work. We set up a GoFundMe page and got about 15, 20 grand. Wow. He appealed the decision and won.
Oh, wow, right. Okay.
But then he just, he's 70 odd is Bob. He decided not to stand again for Parliament. But a great man, a really good man. I always felt I was in good company with Bob. So, let's fast forward 10 years, Ryan. Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Well, in 10 years, I'll be 34, which seems old to me. But
Really?
well, yeah, a little bit.
That? Old, 34.
A little bit. But I would like to see how it's going now, learn more in the job, being in the House of Commons. I still really would like to be an MP, and I'd love to be an MP in my 30s, or at least a candidate or have had some kind of election experience. I think that's where I see myself.
But not a businessman?
I've tried the business, and I think a lot of... being an MP, I think, in a way, you are a brand. You're selling yourself to voters. You've got to then maintain incumbency with constituents. And then think a part of that is you're running social media, you're selling yourself as a product as an MP. So I think in a way there is a lot of
that's a small part of it, to be honest, Ryan. I mean, the brand is the political party that you're in. If that brand's no good, then you ain't going to get elected. I mean, I'm living proof of that. I got elected in 2019 as a Conservative Member of Parliament.
Yeah.
And then got re-elected in my same seat this year as a Reform UK Member of Parliament, and all my friends in the Tory party lost their seats.
Yeah.
So the branding is quite important.
Yeah, no, it is. And so, yeah, you're right. It's not obviously the biggest part of it, but I think there's an aspect of it. So I won't ever lose that business side.
Yeah.
I just think it would be reimagined in different ways. But I definitely see politics being my future.
And if you became a minister, what would be your portfolio?
Oh, I think Department for Culture, Media and Sport. I think with my reality TV background, DCMS makes sense. Yeah.
And would you scrap the BBC licence?
Oh, well, I'm from the BBC. I mean, they gave me my first break. I'd feel bad saying that. But I think, look, I think when you look at their shows, I did Newsnight last week as well. But obviously, I'm a big fan of GB News, and I hope it flourishes even more.
Right.
There we go.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Lee.
That's
Cheers.
Last Orders. What a great guy. Oh, by the way,
that was
2 out of 10. Thanks for joining me on Lee Anderson's Real World. It's been another great show with some great guests. But coming up next, we've got Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan.
Thank you, Lee, for another cracking show. This is Mark Dolan and Friday Night Live. The weekend starts here, folks. Is rail nationalisation an expensive political vanity project? Should we give up our pets to save the planet? Can you imagine living without your cat or your dog in order to pursue the goal of net zero? Also, does the political and economic chaos in France and Germany prove that we are lucky to be out of the EU? Also tonight, were the conspiracy theorists right all along about COVID? And would we have been better off doing nothing? The vaccine tyranny, the masking, the lockdowns, was it all a colossal mistake? Also tonight, as Reform UK sensationally overtake Labour in the polls, is Nigel Farage now unstoppable? Is talk about this guy being Britain's next Prime Minister genuinely possible? Is it credible or is it hype? Also tonight, we're going to talk about Keir Starmer's disastrous speech yesterday at the Pinewood Studios. If he stays this unpopular, should Labour get rid of him? We'll debate that, plus much more. All my pundits in the studio. I'll see you after this.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara is expected to bring heavy outbreaks of rain and some severe gales at times as we head into the weekend. Hail snow too for Scotland, and there are multiple Met Office warnings in force, so do stay up to date on our website for those. This is Storm Dara here out to the west, bringing in heavy outbreaks of rain alongside these frontal systems and a good squeeze in the Isobars, so very strong winds at times across the bulk of the country, particularly around western coasts. These outbreaks of rain are set to continue overnight, still falling as snow across high ground in Scotland, and we're really going to see those winds strengthen in western areas overnight too, particularly in western parts of Wales where we do have a red Met Office wind warning in force too. We could see gusts here reaching around 80 to 90 miles per hour. So for the start of Saturday then, it's going to be a very wet start across a lot of the country. Scotland seeing outbreaks of rain, still some hill snow across higher ground as well. And similar across northern parts of England, Northern Ireland, heavy outbreaks of rain and very strong winds, particularly around coastal areas, but even inland areas seeing some very strong gusts at times. Western parts of Wales likely to see severe gales here at times, making very difficult driving conditions. And on the whole, through Saturday, there is likely to be disruption as a result of the storm. The heavy outbreaks of rain continuing. Still a very windy day across a large portion of the country, particularly around western coasts. And looking at the temperatures too later on, we can see highs generally between 9 to 10 Celsius, but in those very, very strong winds as well, that's really going to add on to the wind chill. So it is going to feel a very chilly day, particularly under the rain and in those strong winds. Through into Sunday, we do start to see the weather settle down slightly. We do have some outbreaks of rain still, particularly in eastern areas, a few showers feeding into eastern parts of Scotland. The best of the weather, or the driest and brightest of the weather across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. But it's still going to be a very blustery day on offer, and we won't really see more settled conditions until we head into next week. Bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So,